Hello and welcome to the Chiaroscuro Jazz Podcasts. I'm George Graham, Director of Artistry and Repertoire for the Venerable Jazz label, which for over a half century has been presenting music from some of the world's great jazz musicians. In this series, we'll have conversations with some of today's outstanding players and their thoughts on some of the artists who have recorded for Chiaroscuro. This time we hear from iconic vocalist Jack Jones, who since 1959 has been spanning genres, performing jazz standards, introducing new songs, and giving a whole new twist to popular rock songs. He's won 2 Grammy Awards, including for his first hit, Lollipops and Roses. In the 1970s, he was known for singing the theme for the TV series Love Boat. In 2023, at the age of 85, Jack Jones released a new album called Artwork, which is a collection of songs he always wanted to record or to redo in new versions. It prominently featured the late jazz organ virtuoso Joey DeFrancesco, who passed away suddenly shortly after this recording was completed. It featured arrangements by veteran jazz bassist John Clayton and features a large orchestra. Jack Jones is a second-generation popular singer. His father was Alan Jones, who had a big hit in the 1930s with the song Donkey Serenade, and famously had a featured role in the Marx Brothers classic film A Night at the Opera. I started by asking Jack Jones about his start in music and the influence of his father.
Well, let's see. I was born in 1938, and my father had just finished recording the Donkey Serenade, and he came home, and he had a little stable behind his house. So he went and hugged his horse and waited for me to be born. And about 3 a.m, I was born. And that's when the trouble started. No. So that's how I got here. And my father that was a soundtrack for the movie, The Firefly. And then that soundtrack became a big hit for him, and bigger than most hits were in those days because of the movie and Jeanette MacDonald and the whole thing. It's great.
Oh, I'll sing to the mule if you're sure she won't think that I am just a fool serenading a mule.
So you kind of grew up in the tradition of singing. Your biography said you had your first record deal back in 1959 with Capitol Records. Was that were you doing a lot of live performance, club work, and that sort of thing before that happened?
No, I was too young. I was doing none. I had a songwriter by the name of Don Ray, who wrote a lot of, he wrote a couple of hits. I can't think of it. The only one I can think of is he wrote a song called "Milkman, Keep Those Bottles Quiet." But what's the song? Anyway, so Don heard me singing with the Page Cavanaugh Trio, who I was working at my dad's act, and they were backing us up. So we made a demo together, and Will Gilmore heard it over at Capitol, and he signed me. And I didn't last very long, but I made a couple of records, and they didn't go anywhere, and so I was gone. And then I went, but one of the records that was on the first album, Steve Allen's "This Could Be the Start of Something Big," was played a lot in San Francisco, and then it got me a job in a club in San Francisco, and then I kept working from then on. But then I was seen by Pete King, who was recording for Cap Records, and he called back to New York and said, "I think I found a boy singer." And so I recorded Lollipops and Roses on an album with Pete King, and it became a hit.
Tell her you care each time you speak. make it her birthday each day of the week. Bring her nice things, sugar and spice things, roses and lollipops, and lollipops and roses.
How old were you at that point?
About 20, 21.
Mm-hmm. So you were one of the early boy band singers or whatever, you know.
Pretty lucky that
yeah.
first time out I had a hit record.
Mm-hmm.
And it won a Grammy.
Yeah, wow. It's a great way to start a recording career.
Yeah, and then I had Wives and Lovers after that, and it became a hit and won another Grammy.
Mm.
And that swelled me for the rest of my life.
Right. Now, you were another interesting thing about one of the things I find fascinating about your career is the varied material you record. Recently, of course, Tony Bennett passed, and in the beginning of the rock days, he was a little bit down in mood because he was he wanted to do the standards. His was the Great American Songbook was his repertoire, but you were a lot more flexible. I mean, when you had a hit, I understand, with the George Jones song in 1964, "The Race Was On," and that's hardly a Tin Pan Alley standard.
No, and I'm one who likes to do things that, unfortunately, that I like, rather than do. I don't know how we got to doing that, but Mickey Kapp, who was producing me then, with the son of Dave Kapp, the owner of the label, we just decided to do the song, and we had to slow George Jones's record down in order to. It's no slight to George Jones; it was a fabulous record, but we had to slow it down to get all the lyrics right. And I feel tears welling up from deep inside, like my. Pardon my voice. I got a little cold.
So yeah.
Anyway, that's how that started, and that was an unexpected hit record. It's great.
Yeah, and again, throughout your career, I noticed that you draw on so many different musical genres for the recordings you do. What attracts you to a song?
I think. I don't think I've changed. I think what attracts me is the new album, which I did because I was asked if I would do an album of songs I've always wanted to record or do over. And so I came up with a list of songs. It's now the album. And what attracts me to a song is the emotional. The quality of the song, what it really means emotionally. And that's why I always loved my friend Tony Bennett, because he always made those choices.
Right, I know. I've heard some interviews of him since he passed, and he just put a lot of thought and consideration into his choice of material, and he always added so much to it. The new album, for example, has songs by Don McLean and Leon Russell and Leiber and Stoller, really interesting variety of people. And even a more contemporary jazz singer, Gregory Porter, is represented on this album. Was that the sort of this process you went through? You heard the recordings and you drew on them from how you feel you could interpret them?
Yeah. Greg Porter, I happened to stumble on his album and I loved the album. And that song appealed to me.
If Love is Overrated, and that was
Love is Overrated.
Yeah, and that was a wonderful ballad that you did. You know, your interpretation of that with the orchestration and all was just was marvelous.
That's John Clayton.
Mm-hmm.
He just did a fabulous job. If love is overrated,
let me be the one who is deceived. Let me find that the hands that are touching me are not the hands they're supposed to be. Your lips, an illusion.
Another thing I note here in this is another cover that you've done. Well, you did an album of tunes by the band, the pop band Bread, as well as the great Lowell George, late Lowell George from the Little Feat rock band and Dixie Chicken. It's just quite a wonderful collection of eclectic pieces. I do a radio show, and my whole claim to fame is eclecticism. So I think you kind of embody that in your musical career.
Well, we're influenced by our producers, and my producer on that album was Rick Gerard, and he was leading me in these wonderful directions that I enjoyed being in, and they weren't necessarily the best choice to make commercially for me, but it was fun to do, and Dixie Chicken was one of those songs.
If you'll be my Dixie Chicken, I'll be your Tennessee Lamb. We can walk together down in Dixieland.
And I got a couple of reviews along the way, being amused by my singing that song.
Yes. And it seems like an interesting juxtaposition there. The elegance of your style with the kind of whimsical aspect of the song.
I know. But it's all good. Basically, my songbook of life has been mostly on the beam, especially when I'm performing in front of people.
Right. Now, another hit that you had, and it persists to this day, is the theme song from the Love Boat TV series. How did that come about?
I got a phone call from Paul Williams, and he said, we're doing a TV series called The Love Boat, and he told me what it was about. And I said, and they said, we'd like you to sing the theme. And I said, well, I really said this to him, I'm embarrassed to say. I said, gee, that's great, Paul. Thank you very much. I'm honored, but who's going to watch a TV show about a cruise ship?
Love, exciting and new. Come aboard. We're expecting you, and love.
And the reruns persist to this day.
Well, what they did was when the ratings started to slip, they threw me out and put Dionne Warwick in for it, and it wasn't working, so they put me back in again.
Right, that's great. Back in the 1960s, when the Beatles and the British invasion were in full swing, Jack Jones appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, where there were young girls in the audience waiting for their rock stars.
Doing The Ed Sullivan Show was when I first became aware of the Beatles. And they weren't on that show I was doing. The Dave Clark 5 was on. And I had done, by then, about 2 or 3 Sullivan shows, and I was used to the audience being age appropriate for what we were doing. And I walked out that day, and the girls, it's all girls, and they're all screaming. I didn't know who I was, but they still screamed, and they were screaming because I had a suit on, but they're screaming. And it frightened me. And then it would get me the next time I did the show. But the Beatle thing was a big change in, and now we're going through another one.
Now, you've had a long-time friendship with Tony Bennett. In fact, Tony Bennett painted your portrait on the new album. I think that's quite a statement there.
Well, I was, you always remember where you were at the time. We all were at Sinatra's funeral, and there was a side room off the church, and everybody was gathered there. And Tony said, "Hey, Jack, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing next?" I said, "Actually, I'm doing a tribute album to you." He said, "Let me do the cover." And I said, "Would you do that?" "Yeah, let me paint the cover. I'm going to go to England. Send me, tell me where to send it." So he went to England and he painted the paint.
My clothes may still be torn and tattered, but in my heart I'd be a king.
Now we've used the painting on this album because it didn't get to me in time for the album I was doing as a tribute to him. So we were pretty sad about that. But I finally used it, and with this album, which I think is very meaningful to me anyway. And so there it is.
Right. Very nice.
Took a long time to get there.
Well, it's sort of in a reference to that. You called that album Jack Jones Paints a Tribute to Tony Bennett.
I did, and it seemed like a good time. And the woman, a friend of mine, who's an artist, Sally Huss, jumped in and created the cover that exists now. It's Tony and I together in vivid colors, and I think it's a beautiful painting.
Yeah,
and so
it's right in front of me here. I'm looking at the CD.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about
Tony. It's interesting. Tony and I ran into each other at the Grammys after that, and he was miffed. And I said, "What's wrong?" He told me he was not happy that I didn't use the cover. He didn't realize that it got stuck in an office closet by mistake and didn't get to me in time. So I stood there before the Grammys started, and we were sitting in the front row, and there I was facing him saying, "Tony, you got to understand, this is what happened." So we were okay after that.
Well, that's good. Let's talk about your new album, Artwork, which is, as we referenced previously, an interesting and an eclectic collection of tunes, beautifully orchestrated by John Clayton. But I think one of the more remarkable people on this album is the late Joey DeFrancesco, whom we lost not long after that recording was made.
Absolutely. And
it's interesting that what I find interesting, there are not too many vocalists who use an organ in the group. There are the blues singers sometimes will do organ in an organ combo setting, but I think Joey DeFrancesco was versatile enough that he could adapt to almost any situation. Of course, he played the horns as well on the album.
Well, fortunately, he didn't sound like Carla Pandit. Do you ever hear of Carla Pandit?
No, I have not.
He used to come on television years ago and 5-minute breaks and play the organ.
Mm.
Boy, am I dating myself. And he had a turban and he played the organ. So,
novelty act.
But anyway, so Joey is, it was a gift to us to have him there, and he just loved it. Apparently, he was, as he told me, he was a fan of mine. He was anxious to hang and do it, and it was a fabulous hang. We went into a place and rehearsed the whole album. At one point, we added some things. It was really a lot of fun. We don't get a chance to do that very often.
You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight, fever in the morning, fever all through the night.
It was a sad thing is his death just came so suddenly.
Right. Well, there's a very nice tribute in the liner notes of the album, which I do recommend, sort of talking about his career and his flexibility. Now, he did a number of trumpet solos. Did he do the sax solos on there? Isn't it clear from the liner notes? Was he? I know there's.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Oh, okay. Because there are some heavy hitters in the sax section on that album, but Joey did the sax solos in, right?
I mean, and we did the album right in the middle of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting to see all the string players playing so beautifully, and they all had masks on.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard for the sax players to have masks on.
Right. Were you spread out more widely in the studio there?
Oh, it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It just was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment in my life, and with John Clayton conducting, who I've been a fan of for a long time, and we finally came together and did this thing. And the songs. This may not be that interesting to anybody, but I sat down one day and I put this. I was sequencing the album with songs that I thought should follow each other, and when I finished, I looked at it and I thought, there's a story here. And so the album follows, a mythical story. And so here's what I came up with. You give me fever. So, hello. I found you at last. And if love is overrated, then I don't mind falling on my face. However, no one is going to hurt you, not while I'm around, because you love me for who I am, and you're funny that way. Uh-oh, our relationship is becoming a game, and we are masquerading as a happy couple. But I don't know what I'd do if you go away, except resort to living a lush life and keep staring at your empty chair. Well, you're asking me, is that all there is? But wouldn't you know, I'm free again. So here's to life. Maybe I should refocus and be thankful for what is really important. Actually, this is all I ask. So that's the story.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
I stuck with it.
I hadn't real. I was listening to I tend to listen from a standpoint of musicality and, the overall sound and production and all, and your voice and all. I sometimes don't listen as thoroughly to the lyrics as some people do, and it's interesting that it sequences into that story. That's quite marvelous, actually, when you consider it.
Well, thanks. But the lyrics mean a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when I started out, I was imagining what it must be like to have these feelings. And now, as I'm kind of finishing up my musical life here, I guess, I know how I felt about these. I've had these feelings.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully you got a few more albums in you as time goes on.
Right.
Well, this is from Chiaroscuro Records, and I'd like to sort of mention some of the chiaroscuro artists and maybe you have some thoughts on some of these people. I understand you have worked with and know Louis Bellson, the great drummer.
Yeah, I knew him, and I guess at a couple of parties we worked together, but I didn't know him real well. But what a great talent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let me throw a few more names at you, see if you've worked with these people or familiar with their work. Trumpet player Clark Terry. Have you had an opportunity to work with him?
Mumbles.
Mumbles, yes.
Yeah. And we were friends.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, he really, other people I've talked to said really brought a lot of joy to the music that he played. In addition to being a really amazing trumpet player.
Amazing he was.
How about saxophonist Gerry Mulligan? Here's another artist who's appeared on Chiaroscuro a number of times and always did some interesting arrangements for other people.
Well, before I became a solo artist, I worked. I remember working down in Miami Beach. Off season, I was in a review called the Billy Barnes Review, and I had this stereo in my hotel room, and all I listened to every night after the show during the day, Gerry Mulligan,
mm-hmm.
And just his music just soothed me so much. It made me feel so good.
Yeah, he appears on a couple of different recordings. In fact, a tribute to him appears on the Chiaroscuro label. All right, another one on our list is another person who's been in a lot of different musical situations, pianist Roger Kellaway.
Oh, Roger, yeah, sure, yeah. A couple of years ago, we had lunch together, and we were hanging out in L.A. More than about 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I just loved his work. I loved his. When I first came to know him as a fan, he was a fabulous piano player, and I didn't know anything about his arranging or whatever, but he was. There's a certain kind of a piano player that I always loved, and he was one that kind of hip but broad, kind of like my recently departed piano player Mike Renzi
mm-hmm.
was that way. He just great classical pianist that could really play jazz.
Yeah, everybody commented on his technique, and of course everybody knows him for the theme, the out theme for All in the Family on TV.
Oh yeah,
he created that. Well, maybe any more comments on the new album? I mean, John Clayton, of course, is prominent as the arranger, and Tom Scott we talked to recently, the saxophonist for this podcast series. Tom is listed as a co-producer. Any thoughts on his contribution to the new album?
Well, I did an album prior to this with him as a musical director.
Oh, okay.
We had a great time working together.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't play on this album. He just helped us in the production area.
I see. I didn't, because there was some great sax solos, and it wasn't clear to me who it might have been, but those are primarily Joey DeFrancesco's playing, right?
Yeah, Joey was pretty eclectic and just no more than one take. He was just right there.
Yeah.
Bang, just wonderful.
Was he doing his thing with one hand on the organ and the other hand on the trumpet?
No, because we didn't need to do that. It was not visual, but
mm-hmm.
He could have.
Mm-hmm. Because I know he worked that way.
Well, there's one song that we used. I guess it was At Last. He played bass with his foot.
Mm-hmm. Which many organ players do.
Yeah. Oh, it's fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah. In the process of recording, you mentioned a lot of this happened during the COVID period. one has the iconic films and so on of Frank Sinatra standing in front of the orchestra with Nelson Riddle and all. Did you work that way? Did you record your vocals with the orchestra, or did you were these more studio recorded with overdubs?
I did both, but I was right with the orchestra. It's hard to sing with a mask on. But and they were all there, and I understand that a lot of them hadn't recorded for a couple of years.
Wow!
And so that was for all of us, it was a real vacation. And ironically, I didn't get COVID from that. I got COVID from going to the grocery store.
Oh.
I think about going back to work because I haven't gone back to work since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know where to start. But we'll see about that. But right now, we're releasing this album, and it's something that's very special, dear to my heart. And these wonderful musicians, and John Clayton is brilliant. It just is brilliant. And I'm so thrilled I got a chance to work with him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes the string arrangements can be a little sweet on some of these crooner albums from the past, but that's right. It's just right on the money what he did, and musically really tasteful.
Yeah, and I think that's what. And I'm not a per se jazz singer, but I'm jazz influenced. But he is jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he lives, and it's so wonderful.
All right, well, thank you, Jack. It's been a great pleasure. I wish you the best with this album, and hope you post-COVID, you get an opportunity to get out there and share your music with more audiences.
Well, thanks for asking me, and you're well known for your wonderful interviews, and I appreciate being with you.
Thanks to Jack Jones for sharing his memories and thoughts with us. Let's wrap up with a chiaroscuro recording of an artist Jack told us he admired, Gerry Mulligan. This is a piece called North Atlantic Run from the 1974 recording Idle Gossip. Jerry Mulligan on baritone sax with an original called North Atlantic Run from the Chiaroscuro Records release Idle Gossip. You can find this and over 100 other titles on our website at chiaroscurojazz.org. They are available on CD, as downloads, and streaming on all popular platforms. And why not subscribe to the Chiaroscuro podcasts, available wherever you get your podcasts. This is George Graham, your producer for this podcast series. Our co-producer is Jim Delacroce. Join us for our next podcast, and thanks for listening.